Yeah, Michael Lighten, writer of science fiction and poetic works. I'm reading a chapter from one of my works presently. This will be Rough Man Daughters, volumes 1 and 2, so that you can hear how the writing flows and see if you have interests. My works are all futuristic so far, except for some poetry, a 2-volume set called Care Teachings for a New World. This reading will consist of just one chapter. After this reading, I will leave connections in the details below, or some will call in the UK show notes, which I found to be interesting. There's a disclaimer at the beginning of Rough Man Daughters. I like to throw a disclaimer in there every now and then. This show is not prophetic. And I say this is a fictional account of a futuristic event. Real city names and streets were added for a realistic touch. People who presently live in these areas of futuristic war locations should consider this as only fiction and not prophetic by any means. Introduction. As I prepared Rough Man Daughters, I could see the book would be too massive in its original form. There were at present 4 volumes, each volume leading to an end and beginning of something new. What I did was merge 4 volumes into 2. This left 2 volumes, Rough Man Daughters and Rough Man Battles. What you presently hold is the beginning of the end for humans as we know our race and the other races as they know themselves. But we all know endings start something new. But what form will these take? That's for you to decide as you read on, and I trust you will read on until the final page. I challenge you to take this journey with me as we go together to humanity's end and new beginning. I wrote that in 2011. Prologue. Since the departure of the rough men in the new times, planet Earth continued to go through stages of war and peace. Some areas that were strongly guarded by descendants of rough men became more stable, while other areas guided by stern laws fell into chaos. Many citizens of Earth feared a new time, but did not want to go back to the old ways of war and poverty. Stagnation and doubt crept in the strongest leaders, and devout citizens prayed for an end to the stagnation. Rough Man Maurice first quote, "When I return, it will be at the end of time." Maurice, former rough man of Hannibal, message picked up in a dream state by several individuals, new times. Chapter 1, Hannibal, April, New Times. In the west of Hannibal, Garvey was 25 and governor, which he held in position with Page, his hermetic, colorful brother. Page turned harsh judge of thieves and murders throughout the region, while Garvey concentrated on the distribution of goods, services, and defensive positions. The defensive position is what worried the region. Tristan, a rogue companion of Maurice, had taken over northern Hine through manipulation and guile. Garvey and Page knew that Tristan did not have much to negotiate with because she never held a position of power and her intentions did not seem geared toward Polaris' best interests. What gave Tristan her power were her daughters, Lou and Moo. Garvey was a dark-complexioned human with black eyes filled with intelligence and a pudgy body with stubby hands and toes. Page was brown complexion with a large forehead and hazel eyes that turned red when he was angry. Dad said it was rape, Page reminded Garvey. That means they are not our sisters, technically. Dad never used the word rape, Garvey reminded Page. That came from Mama Justine and Mama Dee. Technically, they are our sisters. You mean Aunt Dee and Aunt Justine, Page reminded him. They birthed and now we have cousins. They are our stepmoms, not our aunts, Page, Garvey said, exasperated. Their sons and daughters are our brothers and sisters, technically. Tristan's children, Moo and Lou, are our sisters by blood, not law. And looking at this in a new light, we can see how to proceed. Tristan got that position in Northern Hand because of Moo and Lou, their connection to Dad's bloodline. The bold leader in that region is in a weak position since the Han Wars. Trade is weak. He needed a trump card. Sharnak of the South is not enough to keep the borders open, Garvey said. Sharnak lost much of his power when his companion Shawnee died of radiation exposure some years ago, Page sighed. He has not been the same since. Without Shawnee and Sharnak acting as a team, the borders are shut and it has been that way since. Until Tristan, Garvey sighed deeply. What do you think Tristan's next move will be? I think she is going for Eastern Hand and the Megaton missile, Page said without hesitation. The East is the weaker of the Hands, and its strength is the missile. That would explain the rise of troop movements all along the East, but we had skirmishes on our border too, Garvey interjected. A ploy, Page answered cryptically. She wants us to think she is going to attack us, but the weaker border she will go after. Eastern Han. Josh was notified of Garvey's suggestions of beginning troop movements to offset Tristan's ambitions for the East. Josh had a pale complexion with reddish-brown hair and kind blue eyes. He wore gray and blue-green robes and black boots with white strings. Phoebe acted as an advisor to her husband and knew that troop movements were the right thing to do. He had felt anxious since Tristan took power 4 years before. When border skirmishes between the Hans began last year, she knew the inevitable would commence. So the Megaton was reactivated. She knew the Megaton would be the trump card. Phoebe wore her brown hair in a yellow bow. She had blue trimmings that fell over her face. She liked things that drooped like curtains. Her green robes blended with the yellow and blue in an odd combination that was pleasing to the staff's eyes. Phoebe's skin was a browner tone than her husband. When she spoke, it was high pitched, but without the shrill of a banshee. She walked to one screen that acted as a movie of things on the move. Spy eyes sent back images of activities that happened in the region. Could you stop that image? Phoebe said to a thin communicator who sat at the board. What is your name again? Kindred, the communicator said. I used to be an information specialist for University City. Phoebe walked next to her husband, who sat in a turning hard chair. She laid her thin fingers on his shoulder and asked him, what did he see? I see a larger picture. Josh quickly stood, and his body grew rigid with tension. Right there is good, Kindred. Josh walked slowly to the large screen as it froze in one place. He wanted to get closer, but he was as close as he could get. He knew what it was. He needed to confirm it in his mind. They are quarter missiles, Josh slowly said, sometimes called QB-33s, able to take out city blocks and leave everything else standing. He turned to his wife. She wants to preserve us, but take out the military establishment. We need to make it hard on her, Phoebe said. Make her think twice about attacking the East. We don't have the troops or tanks to put pressure on her, Josh said nervously. What do we have? 15,000 troops, 309 air cars fitted with laser cannons, and 20 workable tanks, Kendrick interjected carefully. Over 100,000 troops, Kendrick said quickly. 1,204 laser tanks, 239 air cars with cannon fire, 15 missile batteries of QB-33s, 2 halfers just obtained last year. Phoebe smiled at all the information. You're good, he said. This was all I did all day long before University City was bombed. Then I hung around until I was not needed. Kendrick held up a sheet of information. It's what I do best. Josh smiled, took the sheet of information, stared at his wife, and she stared at him with the same thought. Are you thinking what I am thinking? Josh asked Phoebe. Kindred, Phoebe said. You got a job as our info specialist with all the perks, room, board, and first pick at throwaway computer boards. The works. What do you say? Who would take over for me here? Kindred asked. We'll find someone to take your place, Josh said as he touched buttons on a small electronic phone. Shannon, could you please come in here? Kindred knew this would be a bad scene. Shannon was his interviewer and did the communication job some years ago. She loathed the position and moved to secretary to Josh 2 years ago. She was deeply concerned about the looming war and heard stories of communicators with massive burns from past wars. Shannon was intuitive enough to know she was being set up for a fall. Her short black hair and fair olive skin blended with the green robe she wore. Shannon's small eyes slanted as she became angry, and this was a time like that. Not this again, Shannon said. You're killing me. We need Kindred to be our information specialist, Phoebe said. You can restart the interviewing process for the communications position. I could tell you if you were not my sister, I wouldn't do this, Shannon said angrily. Kendra slowly stood as Shannon reluctantly sat down. Phoebe rubbed her sister's small shoulder, and Shannon glared at her. Don't push it, sis, Shannon said. You're rubbing it in. I'm not rubbing it in, Phoebe said. I am rubbing your shoulder. Don't rub my shoulder, Shannon said. Phoebe stopped the rubbing. She stepped back from her palms upraised as Josh guided Kendrick to the green door. Phoebe thought this would be her time to exit too. I still love you, Shannon said, despite the way you do me. I love you too, Phoebe turned to her sister. Despite your bantering and complaining, you need more faith that things will turn out all right. I have no faith when it comes to war, Shannon said quietly. We humans can do some harsh things when it comes to trying to win a battle. I know, Phoebe said. That's why it's good not to lose your head in a time of need. I need you on the boards because there is nobody else. I can understand that, Shannon said, simmered with hidden despair. That's the first chapter of Rough Man Daughters, volumes 1 and 2. I hope you enjoyed that read. In the works, there are two more I found in the pocket. One is a science fiction thriller called The Forgotten Case of Rain. The title might move around a little bit. And the other is a practical guide to living called Communications and Love. These are all on Amazon, Google Play Books, and Draft Additional Connections, which is Apple and Barnes Noble. So this is Michael Lighten, and I will connect with you in the next audio.